Imagine this. You're setting up your very first AWS CI/CD pipeline. You've got your Terraform configs looking sharp, your GitHub repo is pristine, and you're feeling pretty good about automating your deployments. Everything seems to be going great, right? Well, that's exactly where I was this week. I was configuring an AWS CodePipeline for a new project, using Terraform to define every resource. My source code was happily sitting on GitHub, connected to AWS via a CodeStar connection. I was confident everything was perfectly aligned. Then came the moment of truth. I pushed new code expecting that beautiful green checkmark to appear. Instead, the pipeline failed immediately, right at the source stage. My confidence quickly evaporated. The error message was vague, complaining about missing permissions. So I did what any good engineer does. I dove headfirst into the AWS CodePipeline execution logs. That's where the real story unfolded. It turned out my CodePipeline's IAM role, the very role giving the pipeline permission to access resources, lacked one crucial action: CodeStar Connections UseConnection. In plain English, the pipeline wasn't allowed to use the CodeStar connection to GitHub. It couldn't even pull my source code. Now, here's the kicker. I built this pipeline with Terraform. That means every single permission has to be explicitly declared in code. There are no hidden defaults or automatic magic to save you from yourself. I was following best practices, aiming for a strict least privilege approach, but my careful approach backfired spectacularly. I forgot to include one critical permission, and that's all it took to stall the entire build. My CI/CD pipeline was basically broken by a single missing IAM action. It's kind of crazy to think about. Even the best automation can't help if the fundamentals are off. As the saying goes, a pipeline is only as strong as its weakest permission. And mine had a pretty glaring weak spot. Once I realized what the problem was, the fix was, thankfully, straightforward. I just needed to grant the pipeline's role that missing permission and reconnect it to GitHub. The relief was immediate. First, I double-checked that I had a proper AWS CodeStar connection set up for my GitHub repo. This is the secure link that lets CodePipeline access GitHub. I had created it earlier, but it's a foundational piece. Next, I went into my Terraform configuration for the pipeline's IAM role. I added a policy statement to allow CodeStar Connections, UseConnection on my specific CodeStar connection resource. I explicitly gave CodePipeline permission to use the GitHub connection. After updating the code, I ran a Terraform apply to update the IAM role. Then, I pushed another commit to GitHub to trigger the pipeline again. It was a moment of nervous anticipation. Sure enough, the next push triggered the pipeline successfully. The source stage lit up green. CodePipeline was finally able to connect to GitHub and pull my code with no issues. Seeing that first green checkmark in CodePipeline was a huge relief after hours of head-scratching. It wasn't a flashy change by any means, but it was absolutely foundational to the pipeline. With the right permission in place, the automation could finally do its job as intended. This experience really drove home an important lesson for me. Even a small IAM gap can completely break an entire automation flow. I spent all that time configuring a robust CI/CD process, yet one overlooked permission brought everything to a screeching halt. It's a stark reminder that details matter, especially with cloud permissions. Yes, enforcing least privilege is essential for security, but it requires precision. One missing action in your IAM policy and your pipeline grinds to a stop. On the bright side, catching this issue made my pipeline stronger. I didn't just unblock a stalled build. I reinforced the core of my deployment setup. I learned to double-check those obvious settings next time. It's a reality check that even though AWS and Terraform automation can feel magical, you still have to get the basics right. A CI/CD pipeline's reliability ultimately comes down to having every necessary permission in place. I'll remember that going forward, and I hope you will too. If you found this story helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more tech adventures. And if you want to see the actual code and Terraform configs behind this pipeline, check out my GitHub repo. The link is in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.